So, you want to claim the crown of command for yourself? Think you need weapons and armor and fighting skills? Not so. Maybe you just need to be on the side of God. Hello and welcome to the Friday Fantasy Show from the Bottled Imp, exploring the realms of fantasy. My name is Ken Boyd, and today, yes, this is giving it away, we are doing another Talisman, the magical quest game character guide. And this time, we're going to take a little look at the monk. The character of the monk. Just what is he all about? Well, he starts in the village. Naturally, he's a monk. He wanders around. And his alignment is good, as you would expect it. Strength of 2, again, he's a monk. He's not necessarily going to be a fighter. And he has a craft of 3. Yes, he's got a bit of brains about him. 4 life, yeah, that's standard in Talisman, really. And fate of 5. Oh, yes. Special abilities, he has 3 of those. Number 1, your inner belief allows you to add your craft value to your strength during battle. Number 2, after rolling the die when praying, you may add 1 to the score. And number 3, you may not use weapons or armor during battle. So, as you probably gathered, the monk's strength does lie in battles, because the first special ability is the strongest special ability that he has. Plus, the monk starts with a high fate value of 5. So, you can certainly be bold and take more risks, because obviously what fate does is it means you can re-roll a die. So let's look into the special abilities a little bit further. Number 1, your inner belief allows you to add your craft value to your strength during battle. So, as it sounds, it's pretty simple. You add your current craft value to your current strength value. And if you're just starting out, that's going to be 2 strength and 3 craft. So you add those up. You add the craft to your strength, and that gives you a total of 5. Now, you have to be a bit careful here, because that's in battle. That means that when you're fighting enemies of strength, that's when you can use that special ability, not when you're fighting psychic combat, which means you'll be using your craft value. You can't then add your strength to your craft. Does that make sense? I hope it does. So be careful of that. So what you want to be doing then, because that is basically his best ability, you want to be drawing as many adventure cards as possible to get as many enemies that have strength as their fighting category. And then obviously, because you can add your craft to your strength, again you start off with 5, so hopefully you'll be picking up smaller enemies such as the rat, or no, it's not a rat, no, it's a boar. Is it a rat? I'm sure there's a rat in there somewhere, but definitely a boar which has got strength 1. And the reason why you want to be doing that is because obviously you want to be leveling up your strength and your craft, and a good way of doing that is by defeating enemies, and then when you get a total of their strength or craft as 7, then you can trade them in for a craft or a strength. So that's what I'm saying, you want to be drawing as many cards as you can, because you want to be fighting those enemies. And I will just remind you, yes, remember that doesn't work with psychic combat. Obviously, as the game carries on and you do level up your strength and your craft values, then of course your battle score will be higher. So as you gain more craft, you'll be adding that to your strength, and it is very valuable, that special ability. And number 2, after rolling the die when praying, you can add 1 to the score. Now, again, that's fairly straightforward. There are various places on the board, on the base game, where you can gain stuff by praying. And you will always be able to add 1 to the final outcome. So, for example, there's the chapel. You roll a 5, you gain 1 life. You roll a 6, you gain a spell. So obviously if you roll a 4, which I believe is ignored, then you will obviously add 1 so you can gain that spell. but you don't have to. So if you roll a 5 and you wanted a spell, you can take that. Or if you rolled a 5 and you wanted to gain... Sorry, if you rolled a 5 and you wanted the life, then you would take that. If you rolled a 5 but you wanted a spell, you would add your 1, and that would give you 6, so you can get your spell. There is also the Temple, which is on the middle region. If you roll a 6, you gain a strength. If you roll a 7, you gain a craft. If you roll an 8 and 9, you gain a spell. If you roll a 10, you gain a Talisman. If you roll 11, you gain 2 fate. If you roll a 12, you gain 2 lives. Oh, bless you. I think we got the monk in the corner there, and he's sneezing. He's obviously allergic to something here. Maybe it's the devil in the room. And of course, being a godly character, he's allergic to the devil. So yeah, so obviously if you're praying at the temple, basically 6 to 12, you get to roll 2 dice. So 6 to 12 is all good stuff. 1 to 5 is not so good stuff. So that could make a difference. If you've rolled 5 and you're a bit unlucky and you've rolled 2 dice and you get 5, of course you can add that 1 extra and therefore you gain a strength. So again, it comes in very useful at certain times. If you're playing with certain other expansions of Talisman, then there will be other places to pray. And also, some adventure cards, there are places where it says roll the die and pray. And again, you can use your add 1 score ability. Now the third one, special ability, well, it is you may not use any weapon or armor during battle. So that's not necessarily a special ability, it's kind of more of a hindrance, it's a curse, because again, it's fairly straightforward to understand though. The drawback is that the weapons add strength and craft. So if you pick up a sword, for example, or you buy a sword, that normally adds 1 to your strength, but you're not allowed to use it. So that's frustrating. Also, if you use armor, if you're another character and you can use armor, that normally saves potentially saves a life. You'll be rolling a die to see if you actually save a life after combat, or psychic combat, or even oh no, not psychic combat. It depends if you've got a psychic armor. But generally, you'll be saving lives after fighting. But of course, if you're the monk, you're not allowed to wear any armor, so you can't do that. So it's more of a drawback than a special ability. But I guess that counteracts, that's why they've put the ability of adding your craft value to your strength. And also it's thematic, because monk, in this case, they're not meant to be fighters, so they don't use weapons or armor. The downside to the monk, as I say, there's only 2 special abilities really. It can feel a little bit underwhelming when you know, especially the way we play it, where you deal out the characters randomly and you go, oh, I've got the monk. Because there's not a lot to the monk really. So you might feel that it's a bit underwhelming. And of course, as I say, one special ability is a negative special ability really. And you don't start the game with any spells. So, you know, even though your craft is 3 and you can have 1 spell, you don't start the game with any spells. So it would have been nice really, just because there's not a lot of special abilities, if they'd put it where you can start the game with a spell. Maybe you could house rule that. Favorable places on the board for good characters. In the outer region, go to the chapel, as we mentioned before. If you are good, you will either heal up to your life value, which can be very handy. You can do that for free. You can pray by rolling 1 die. And as I say, if you roll a 5, you gain a life. If you roll a 6, you gain a spell. The crags, roll 1 die. You could potentially, if you roll a 6, a barbarian leads you out, you gain 1 strength. If you roll a 1, you're attacked by spirit craft 4. So remember, you know, if you're going there straight away and you've only got craft 3, be careful with that one. 2 to 3, you lose the next turn. That's not necessarily a biggie. 4 to 5, you're safe. There's no effect. So it's worth just going there just for that 6, because remember, you start with 5 fate and you can re-roll that. So if you rolled it first of all and you got a 1, you could re-roll and hopefully you get a 6. And the same applies for the forest, but it's the other way around. It is if you roll a 6, a ranger guides you out and you gain a craft. So again, you can go there and try your luck. Also, I'd go to the city, go visit the enchantress, because you can gain a craft or strength. If you roll a 4, 5, 6, it's all good. But with the enchantress, and that's not praying, it specifically has to say pray on the space or on the card for you to actually use your special ability. But it's worth going there, especially early on, because if you roll a 1, you get turned into a slimy little toad for 3 turns. And remember, you've got fate, so again, you can ignore that. You will have to take the second die roll if you do use fate. But of course, if you go there early on, you're not going to lose much if you become a toad. It's when you're later on, you've powered up and you've got lots of objects, you've got lots of followers, and you become a toad. That's when it's real troublesome. 5, I would go to Ruins or the Oasis because you can draw 2 adventure cards. So most other spaces it's just 1 adventure card, but if you're trying to draw lots of adventure cards, because in this case you want to be fighting enemies with strength because you can add, because your special ability, go to those 2 places. And then in the the middle region, if you go to the Hidden Valley, you can draw 3 adventure cards, and it gives you a better chance of getting those enemies. And for the monk specifically, I'd again go to the temple because of this +1 on praying. Places to avoid if you're good: graveyard. Obviously, naturally, you're going to be, troubled in the graveyard. If you're good, you lose 1 life. Middle region, well, there's no specific, spaces that are going to punish a character that's good, but obviously watch out for the desert because you will lose a life if you haven't got a water bottle. Best route to go on the inner region, more likely to go craft, although it is almost 50-50. You're only 1 better when you start with craft. Your craft is 3, which is obviously going to be better than your strength at the beginning. That's 2. Now, normally the one that's higher, I normally then try and level that up because you've got a slight advantage. But in this case, it's only 1. But, it depends. With Talisman, you might aim to go for craft, and some, there's quite a lot of luck in Talisman, so you could end up just powering up strength just because of it. And, because of your special ability, I guess you're going to be adding your craft value to your strength, so you might power up your strength quicker. But in any case, you do have to kind of level up the both because, you need certain things you do need both strength and craft in order to progress. But I would say maybe you'd be going up for craft. So what that means is you go the mines route, which is you go to the mines, you roll 3 dice, and then you subtract your craft from your total and you move directly to that. So obviously you want a high craft, because if you roll 3, you want to get 0, which means you keep on the mines. Then the next space will be Vampire's Tower, suffer blood loss. What you do is roll 1 die to determine how many lives the vampire takes, and you can discard the number of followers instead of a life, the loss, which is pretty cool. So if you roll the dice and say you get a 3, that's going to you lose 2 lives. If you've got 2 followers that you kind of are a bit spare now, you're getting close to winning, you can push them in front of yourself so the vampire takes their life and not yours. And the pits, fight the pit fiends. Roll 1 die and fight that many pit fiends with strength 4 each, so each of them will have 4, until you fight them 1 by 1 until either you die or they all die. So again, if they've got a strength 4, that's not too difficult to overcome. Certainly by then, your strength wants to be at least 10, I guess, 8 to 10. That normally does it. And of course, you can then add your craft value as well. So that one shouldn't be a problem. So to recap, the best way really to to utilize the monk's special abilities are try to draw as many adventure cards as you can, because then you can get into fights that use strength, and then you can use your special ability where you add your craft to your strength, and of course then you'll be gaining trophies to then cash in for a strength or craft. Try to pray at the try to speak properly. Try to pray at the chapel and the temple early on, especially early on, because that will help you level up quicker, because then you want to be gaining those spells, those lives, those craft or strength. And be bold. You've got 5 fate. Now that's quite high. That's probably one of the highest base characters that will start with the highest fate value. So you've got a little bit more chance. You can be a bit more gung-ho. You can take a few more risks because, as I say, if you use a fate, you can re-roll a dice. So I would also say, visit the chapel, that replenishes lives, visit the crags to gain strength, visit the forest to gain craft, and presumably you're going to be leveling up your craft. That's probably going to be the main one. That's going to be the higher of the values. Go the mines route in the middle region. Not the middle region, in the inner region. Oops. Hopefully that is special tactics for the monk. As I say, the monk can feel a little bit underwhelming, I should say. I don't know what's the matter with me. Hey, maybe I've been drinking some of that holy wine. You might sort of think, well, you can't fight, you can't use weapons, but As I say, once you start leveling up those the craft and the strength, then of course adding both of them, he does become very, very valuable. It doesn't mean you can't use other magic objects as well, so utilize those. And as I say, try to draw as many adventure cards as possible, because you can still have followers, you can still get the mule, you can still get as many magical objects that will help you, and you know, it's kind of compensating for. We'll just let that go by. So obviously if you get magical objects, that can compensate for you not having armor or weapons. We do have other character guides. We are working our way through the base game of Talisman, and then once we've done those, we will crack on to the other characters in all the other expansions as well. And we do have reviews of all the expansions plus the base game, so check those out. We've got a special little playlist on the YouTube channel. But that's it for now. Always remember to keep it unreal, especially if you have the power of God.